Hello everyone. So I think we can start in a minute. So just give me some time. I'm just checking if it is fine. Hello everyone. So yeah, looks like it's fine. Yeah, we are good to start. So hello again. Welcome in our today's discussion. I hope I'm pretty much audible as well as visible to everyone. So just send hi or hello in the chat so that I'm aware that you are part of our chat. But today, our objective is to start with the roles and responsibilities. I mean, it's again a very typical topic and very typical problem area where many of us have been facing this issue, understanding what are different roles and the different designations and the responsibilities wise are available in my data science profile. And that is where we have come up with a fantastic idea about why not to detail discuss about these. So we're going to be discussing about the different types of roles and their respective definitions in terms of their designation, whatever it is. So that's pretty much what the agenda would be for today's class. As always, any questions in general, I'm always monitoring the chat, so we can always discuss. You can always bring up your things in the chat box. So we are monitoring the chat. It's pretty much a live video, so we can start talking in towards those areas as well. So without wasting further time, I think let's get started. So, we are going to discuss about the roles and responsibilities, but before that, I'll quickly introduce myself as always. So, my name is Arpit Jain, and the only reason I'm here with you all talking because data science is what my passion is, and I really like sharing my expertise with different people. So that's pretty much who I am. And from a technical perspective, I'm currently working as a lead data scientist with having years of experience in the background and having been working with multiple tools and techs around in and around data science. So along with this, I'm also a public speaker. So I do talk to students across their profile and to help them understanding their technical journey. So any questions, anything in general as well, please always feel free to reach out. And as I said, so we are monitoring the chat. So please feel free to drop in your questions and the pointers. So we will take it up likewise. Cool. So without wasting further time, let's move towards our agenda. So today's agenda is prominently towards talking about my different roles and responsibilities. Very important topic because now with the ever increasing demand of data science things, right? So we have been discussing about a lot of different designations. People are really confused about, which designation I should be applying for, right? So, and that is where we have come up with this. Hello, Shubham. Thank you so much for joining us. Right. So, as I was saying, different roles, right? And if you also come up, I'm pretty sure you must have been exploring the different jobs and different portfolios and the different designations which are around. So, few common ones are data scientist, data analyst, business analyst, data engineers, ML engineer, right? So a lot of different fancy designations which you have been coming across. Yes or no, guys? Right? So I'm pretty sure you must have been, coming across these different designations. So how to find out which is the right designation for me and what exactly the difference is, if there is any, between each of these designations. So what I'm expected to do when I am being offered a job as a data analyst, or what I'm expected to do if I'm being offered as a job as a data scientist. So how does that get differentiated? Right? So that's pretty much what the agenda of today's discussion is. So we have to figure out this. So we will be definitely understanding how we can come across this and what are the different roles and how we can figure out the right path for us. So I have listed down the different potential major responsibilities and the roles we have been coming across in the industries. Again, guys, it is not the only ones which you will see, trust me on that, but the prominent ones I've tried to cover in this, and each of these designations, we will be going through it one by one, and we will be understanding how exactly each of them gets differentiated, and then which one is more suitable for you, we will be discussing on top of that. And also, obviously, because if you're getting called as in some designation, you're expected to do some kind of job. And then when you're expected to do some kind of job, there is an expectation from the skills as well, right? If your designation is, say, designation A, there might be requirement of certain skills for that designation. I cannot be doing, what to say, a Java development job with having a knowledge of only SQL, for example, right? I cannot do that. I need, for a Java developmental role, I need to have the knowledge of Java, right? And respectively other skill sets. So likewise, if I am into a particular designation, a particular job profile, I am expected to have certain skills which is relevant to that role. And that is also a very important part, right? And that is what our objective is. So I'll try to frame up all of these, major of these different roles and the responsibilities, and also try to list down certain mandatory skills which are required for those roles. Okay, that's pretty much what the agenda would be. And as I've clearly mentioned to everybody, so please feel free to react. So towards our discussion, I'm always monitoring the chat, so we can always talk on your questions as well. And please be mindful, there's always a lag of in my live streaming and the one which you're watching right now on YouTube. So you might see a lag of 15-20 seconds approximately for me answering your doubt or question. So please stay tuned, and then I'll be definitely coming back to your responses. Cool. So with this, let's get started. But as always, we have always discussed about at least one quote per our session. So today we'll be talking about data. So data is the new science. Why? You already know that. And big data holds the answers. So now these days, as I've always been talking about this, so data is actually the new fuel which every industry has started exploring, right? And trust me, guys, it's not like the data is available now and then only we are able to take up some strategic decisions. No, data was always there. From day one, data was always there. What has changed in this time frame and in the time which we have been working on is basically the improvement of my infra. I have been evolved around the tools and the techniques which is capable enough to handle this data and extract the information which I want to use. Right? So that has evolved. That is pretty much what we are trying to explore here. So data is what we have right now, but on top of this, we are trying to work basically the new tools and the techniques which is helping us solve the problem statements which is beholding the data. So that with the development of the new tools and techniques, now we are able to answer the questions which is pretty much coming up here. And for that, big data. So big data is again the enormous amount of data which already the businesses have in their respective problem statements. And that is where with different involvement of my data, we talk about 3 V's there: velocity, variety, and the volume, right? So we always talk about 3V, which is nothing but velocity, veracity, and we talk about variety, right? So that is what the 3 things we talk about: velocity, veracity, and the variety of my data. And that is where with enormous amount of information around you, we are going to take the business decisions. This is not based on anybody's gut information. It's more towards now having the core information backed by my data, and with the help of this data, we are able to take some business decisions. And that is what pretty much how industries have evolved. And that is where now we as a data science professionals are taking up the space, and we are able to answer the questions which were actually unanswered previously in the business. So that's pretty much what the data science is and what data is doing in the businesses. But again, moving forward, in terms of data science, as we have discussed, right? So data science, as you already know, it's a pretty vast field, right? And multiple different we have been discussing about different roles which is coming up. And every now and then, guys, you might be seeing a different designation. Honestly, I've been seeing really fancy designations coming these days. Something called as data astrologer. I mean, I've recently come across one designation called as data astrologer, right? I mean, this is something which is very fancy, right? So, guys, let me come to the point very straight, okay? There could be possibility that there is a completely new designation which is created by a particular organization who is offering you that job. It could happen. So never get completely, disoriented by a different new designation you are seeing across, right? My always first advice would be to check your job descriptions, right? So we will anyway be talking about different important, prominent career options. But even if there is any job profile which is coming beyond this, you are reading your job profile better, and from this job profile you are able to what is the requirement in terms of skills, what is the job expectation, how you are expected to solve that job, and that is where you'll get your okay. So right now on your screen, as you can see, data science is a and it has multiple options, and it starts from the basic tool level job and goes beyond engineering the system architecture. So what do I mean by this? So data science field, as you already know, it involves multiple different tools, and we have been discussing about the different skills which is needed. We have this class. So from the skills perspective, we talked about Python being one of the prominent skills, structured query language, SQL becoming one of my mandatory skills. And apart from this as well, we have been seeing new different tools like Tableau, Power BI, and a lot of other platforms which are coming up. Or even simple Excel manipulation. So even you are doing a job on Excel is again a tool, software, right? So my career option in data science can either start from a very basic tools, like maybe a Excel manipulation job, like you can actually perform an analysis on Excel if you might have realized that, right? So yes, obviously the kind of amount of data you can process is obviously very less, but you can still perform the basic analysis on Excel. You have the options of graph, you can pivot the data, you can do analysis there, right? So your job can be as basic as a simple tool level job like an Excel manipulation. It can go beyond the engineering the system architecture. When I say the system architecture, imagine a whole ecosystem. And there are multiple components in my ecosystem. So for example, any organization which is trying to solve a business problem on data science, like say for example, I want to find out, say, anything which is happening on a real-time basis. Maybe for a transaction being happening. So the moment transaction happen on any online merchandise store, I want to find out whether the transaction is fraud or not. I have to do this on a real-time basis, right? So to have that prediction happening on a real time, I have a whole ecosystem in the background. I have a database unit. I have the pipelining of my data, which is getting the real feed and then maybe an offline process where we would have already have the model in place, like the trained model based on my historical data. And on a real time, I'm processing the data which is coming up using the offline model, giving the new predictions, and that prediction is already getting forecasted on my front UI. And an automatic messaging is or notification is going to the respective team to take some actions. And everything is connected, interconnected. A whole system which is running behind a problem statement. So designing or engineering my entire system architecture to cater a business problem on data. That could be there, right? That is also one of the options, one of the career options in data science. So data science is a very, very, very vast field. So always do not clog your mind that data scientist or data analyst are the only options which we have in data science domain. No, there are a lot of multiple options. So it can start from a basic tool level job, maybe a simple data entry job, or can go beyond even designing my entire system ecosystem. It can happen like that, right? And every job role obviously here will have a respective responsibilities attached to it. I cannot ask you to be good in, say, system designing or a system architecture if your job role says that you're expected to do some Excel level manipulations. That is not your expectation. That is not what you are getting hired for, right? So every job role as per the job description could vary, right? So every job profile, whether it is, your expectation from you for that particular job could be varying depending on the job description. So every job role is attached to a job description, and this could vary again depending on what profile you're getting into. Yes, even before that, still there are certain industry or the organization wise overlaps in designation. Very important point. For example, scenario that your designation suppose is data analyst, right? So even if your designation is say data analyst, you might still end up designing the system architecture as well, or maybe end up developing some cool deep learning modules. And it could also happen that if your designation is a data scientist, you might still end up doing some basic Excel level job. So now what I am expected to tell you here is you should not completely dependent about what you are doing right now. So your objective should be completely blindfolded with the designation you are getting into. So designations in different organizations can also mean differently. For example, as I've said, having the same designation as a data scientist, again, my job role could differ from one company to another. It is very subjective to organizations as well. So in data science industry also, although we still talk about certain mandatory or certain key prominent career options or the designations, but there could be industry or the organizational wise overlaps in my designation. So your objective, the moment when you start talking to your recruiter, the moment you start seeing some jobs opportunities, you have to clearly talk and understand the expectation from you in terms of the job. Okay, very, very, very important there. But having been said that, still there are certain mandatory or the prominent roles. So primarily we have seen there are three different type of career options. So primarily I'm saying, okay, on a very broad level, primarily there are three different type of career options in data science, what we have observed so far. And by that, I mean, you're seeing on your screen, prominently we have seen one as data analyst, second as data scientist, and third as data engineer. So primarily, out of all the available career options, three prominent ones are there: data analyst, data scientist, and data engineers. So these different roles actually bifurcates the umbrella into three different directions, right? And yes, as I've mentioned as well here, always be mindful that there could be multiple aliases of the same profile. There could be multiple aliases of my same profile. We'll discuss about that as well. But right now, as I've mentioned, three different roles: data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, right? So these are the three prominent career options which have been evolved with time in the data science field. So let's try to understand what are these one by one. So first, here is my data analyst role. So what does a data analyst do in a job? So data analyst, as the name suggests, we're talking about analyst role or analysis of something, right? So here we talk about these are the people who are responsible to gather, process, and transform my data. So these are my core people who are actually doing the data manipulation work, like understanding the data, processing the data, transforming my data. And even before transforming, you need to gather the data. So gathering the process and understanding manipulation, transformation, that's pretty much where the analyst comes into picture. And obviously, the moment I'm able to take out some interesting insights, because that's why I'm doing a transformation, right? By transformation, I mean a couple of things. I mean cleaning of my data. I mean feature engineering. All pretty much what an analyst does. And the reason why we do this transformation, like cleaning and the feature engineering part, with an intent of having a better pattern recognition within my data. That's what the intent is, right? The intent always is to get the hidden patterns which is available in my data, and based on this patterns which we have identified, yes, these people would be able to assist the business in making better business decisions. Because we know that yes, if you give a loan to a person who is maybe in his early 20s with having a very dynamic financial stage, I have a chance of default there, right? So I'm able to take a better business decision backed by some data which I have in the background, which is justifying that decision. And how I'm able to take that? How I'm able to assist that business? With the help of the insights which we have figured out. And that is where the analyst comes into picture. Yes, and they could also include the data extraction task from various other sources as well. That includes web, images, etc. So when I say gathering of my process, yes, these people are also responsible to extract my data, because as I've told you, the data in any business is not available like right there on your screen as a CSV file. It doesn't happen like that. There are many times where you have to get the data. It could be lying on a database, so you might have to be working around some database platforms, or you might be extracting some information from other sources that include a web, like a web scraping, or maybe a bunch of images available. So all those are your data points, and that is where analyst roles comes into picture. They are kind of able to get this data, extract this data, process it, transform it, get the best statistical understanding of my data and help the business take some relevant business decisions. So prominent skills here, as pretty much can also be intuited, I need SQL. Yes, because I am interacting with my databases to get my data. And how can I do that? With the help of SQL. Python, as I've clearly mentioned, that could also be involved in data extraction from web. So web scraping could be one of the activities as well. And I'm doing the processing transformation of my data. Again, for that also I need some platform to do this. So Python being the prominent skill again for that area. Data EDA statistics again become my prominent skills, where I'm more focused towards applying the right set of knowledge, the right set of skills, which is able to help us understand the hidden patterns. Without the knowledge of statistics, how can I do the transformation process? Without knowing the right EDA process, how can I explore what's happening inside? And along with this, there are certain other skills also which might be helpful for a data analyst. When I talk about understanding the data, reading the data, we also talk about visualization. The data visualization is also one of the prominent things. Python does help in data visualization, but in some of the other organizations, we have also seen that there are certain tools which are helping us to do this data visualization task. So Tableau, Power BI could also be one of the prominent skills which we can ask about being as an analyst. But the ones which are highlighted, these are the mandatory ones for an analyst profile. So that's pretty much what an analyst does, data analyst does. Second is data scientist role. So data scientist in a nutshell is nothing but data analyst plus predictive modeling. Very important. In a nutshell, data scientists are the people who are doing almost everything what an analyst does, as a data analyst does, plus the predictive modeling part. Right? So that's what defines a data scientist is. And data scientists, since we're talking about predictive modeling as well, yes, they are professional for managing the massive amount of data, because we might end up needing enormous data, the right set of pattern identification for the model developmental process. So yes, these are the professional people managing and exploring the massive amount of data. So data scientists are nobody, or rather than they will say, these are the people who are doing almost everything what an analyst does, plus predictive modeling on top of that. That's pretty much what a data scientist does for me. Okay. So data scientists are the people who are able to find patterns in the given data and build the prediction models. And how am I building the prediction models? AI ML comes into my picture here. Artificial intelligence, machine learning can be added as an additional skill for a data scientist. So if you see from the skills perspective, everything remains the same: SQL, Python, EDA, statistics, plus an addition of ML. That's where data scientists get differentiated. And again, guys, these are the only listed down mandatory ones. The list is never ending. We can still talk about Tableau, Power BI, Big Data, Hadoop, Hive, Cloud, a lot of different things. Again, the ask for a requirement from any organization would vary again, but these are the prominent skills where you are expected to be mandatorily good at. Getting my point? So data scientists are the people who are doing everything mostly what an analyst does, plus the predictive modeling on top of that. We have a question from Shubham. So Bhaiya, like a person can join as data scientist, or it needs some experience after having position of data analyst? Good question. To be honest, Shubham, there is no mandatory written note from anywhere that you have to start your career as a data analyst before joining as a data scientist. It's not at all like that, right? It depends. It's just a requirement of your skills. If you possess that skill, on top of SQL, Python, EDA, stats, then yes, you're pretty much eligible for a data scientist role as well. But yes, since you already know, data analysts are not on paper expected to have the knowledge of artificial intelligence or machine learning. So slightly bit of, I would say, a first level kind of a job. But again, I won't say it as it's a completely, a lower category job compared to data scientist. No, these are two different type of jobs, because you need to understand one thing. In any industry, you do not need artificial intelligence or machine learning every single time to solve a business problem. With the help of stats, with the help of EDA, Python, SQL, you can pretty much solve, I would say, majority of your business problems. AI/ML is not needed every single time. There's a myth for that, right? So data analyst, data scientist are two different profiles. Don't think that data analyst is an entry-level job and data scientist is an experience-level job. It's just the expectation from the role which is there. Predictive modeling is just an additional cherry on the cake which is happening, right? So I'm not expected to solve every single business problem with AI/ML. So to answer your question, no, it is not mandatory to have some experience before joining as a data scientist, or so you have to start working as a data analyst first. No, it's not mandatory requirement. If you're skilled enough in those areas, you can go for data scientist or a data analyst role depending on what skill you are at. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Cool. So the next category of role we talk about is data engineer. Okay, so this is a completely different role. So data engineer are the people who are the foundation of any large organization, and their major work is towards the infra software development. So these are the people who are more like the backend people who are supporting and building my entire infrastructure. They are able to develop this entire ecosystem on which this system is completely running. So I talked about the entire ecosystem, right? So the moment I say I have a business problem which is getting solved in data science, and I said I need a real-time prediction. For that, yes, I need to have in place, a big data architecture, information pipelines. I need to have the connectivity between my database and the real-time feed which is coming up. It should automatically save in my database. And once the data is saved, I need to extract it for processing towards my model development. Again, one connectivity there. Once the processing is done, I need to call the model predictions. Then once the predictions are there, I need to show that predictions on a front UI or a screen, and maybe send some notifications to the respective teams. So everything, entire designing of my infra, or I would rather say building up the pipelines towards these connectivities, that's where the engineers comes into picture, the data engineers. So these are the people who are not involved in any EDA process, any data analysis process, or any machine learning process. Rather, they are designing the backend services of my system. So they design, build, and manage the systems for the organization's data analysis and processing. So what a data analyst or a scientist does is pretty much provided by the data engineers. The environment is what getting provided by the data engineers. Fine. I think I'm back here. Okay. So this is pretty much what the engineer does, guys. So taking care of my entire infra, that's the job structure of engineer is. So taking care of my infrastructure. So, and from the skills perspective, if I have to talk, we're talking about SQL databases, big data, cloud computing, Java, Python, Ruby, MATLAB, Hive, Pig, SAS. There's so many skills. So these are the people rather taking care of my infrastructure, right? So building up my ecosystem on which now I can run the analysis, being as an analyst or a data scientist. Those are the responsibility of my data engineer, taking care of my runtime or my ecosystem to help develop the place where the analysis can be done. So building up my entire ecosystem is what the data engineer does. So guys, these are the prominent three roles which we have observed in any industry: data analyst, data scientist, data engineers. Obviously, that, as I've said, there could be a lot of aliases for the similar roles, right? So I've seen, I'll show you a few other roles also, but I've seen there are a lot of aliases. Like, for example, a data analyst can also be called as a simple analyst, like an analyst, or like a risk analyst, or a product analyst, or maybe a BI analyst, right? So, or a data consultant. So all of these could be some fancy designations respective to different job roles. But being you as a person who's trying to get into a data science industry, your prime objective should be to read the job descriptions well enough so that you are informed, because I've told you how the responsibilities of the different designations look like. So if you figure out that yes, if this job demands to have a good skill of SQL, Python, statistics, and I'm more towards analysis of my data, I need to help the business take some decisions. So I know that this job role is more inclined towards data analyst profile. So always you have to be watchful of that. Okay. So this is what my three major job profiles are there. But yes, there are certain other career options as well. We talk about business intelligence developer, database administrator, business analyst, machine learning engineer, data architect. So there are again certain other prominent career options which we have observed so far. So I'll try to brief you about these as well. But again, as I've said, these are again not the only options which you could see. As I've told you, other aliases like analyst could also be called as a simple analyst, or a risk analyst, or a product analyst, or a BI analyst, or a data consultant. It could broadly vary from company to company. Okay. So always be mindful of what you are having as part of your prominent role. So your objective should be to read descriptions carefully so that you can prominently understand what's happening around. So cool, let's move towards understanding these different job roles. So first, business intelligence developer. So business intelligence developer, this role is more intense towards building the data in form of a consumable effort. So now we're trying to take out the essence of my data. So here extensively it needs the business knowledge and the ability to translate the data into consumable data products. We talk about certain tangible results, right? We talk about certain tangible platforms which can leverage this. So in the business intelligence, we prominently talk about data visualization. And the business intelligence, there are certain tools which are there in the market, like BI tools. We talk about Tableau, Power BI, they all are BI tools. Yes. So they are expected to be good in these respective BI tools. So these are again tool-centric jobs in data science, right? So they collect the data, design, develop the system. These are the people who are trying to develop this extensive data product subjective to the usage of my industry, thus helping the business take some relevant business decisions. Right? So we have to always be mindful of what we are going to have as a business intelligence developer. So when I say a business intelligence developer, I am going to talk about the person who is going to be mandatorily good in the BI tools and helping in the pointers of having the right data with me. Cool. So that's pretty much what do we have here. I have a couple of questions from Shubham. Stream is lagging. Doesn't look like. I think it's fine. I'm anyway watching it separately as well, so I could see it's running fine. Please try to refresh your internet connectivity, Shubham. I think it's me. Uh, okay, so fine. Let me also check it once at my end. I think it looks fine. But still, if it's still stuck, let me know. Yeah, otherwise, I could see a question from you. So, what to have in resume for like which project will be beneficial for us for okay. So again, it is very okay. So we are talking about having the right project. So because again, the resume build up is very important. When we say I'm going to go towards a data analyst profile or a data scientist profile, so is what exactly I have been doing around this area. Obviously, it is preferable if you have a business direct experience, but even if you don't have it, you can always showcase your more like an academic experience. So that can also help. So academic experience wise, we always talk about the projects which you have done in academics, right? Or as part of your own understanding as well. So which project, I cannot name the projects as such. So all the projects are, there should be two laws for choosing the projects, okay? So first, it should not be very, very, very fancy so that you yourself cannot explain. So it should not be so complicated. It should not be so fancy that you are not able to explain your project well when asked in the interviews. It should not be very, very, very fancy. Okay. Second, you should not choose a project which is very simple at the same time. Like there are very simple data sets available in the market, like Iris data set, like Titanic data sets, like empty cars data set. These are very common data sets, right? So try avoiding having the very simple of my projects, very simple projects in place. At the same time, try not to choose something which is very difficult, right? So try to have a medium complexity project, which you are able to explain, and also it's a decent complexity. So it looks nice when you write it. Okay. So, but again, it should be revolving around the job responsibility, like more like talking about what analysis you did, so talk about few of your interesting inferences. You can talk about some descriptors. So work towards that area, right? Coming back, so this is what the business intelligence developer does. So they are trying to work around the BI tools. When I say BI tools, so I am strategically talking about the respective data products, which is helping us to have the data visualization in place in a much better way. So that includes Tableau, Power BI, and a lot of other industry specific BI tools as well. Second is database administrator. So database administrator, again falling under a data science domain. So sole responsibility for these people is storing and organizing of my data. So they are responsible for the right storage and the, I would say, organization of my data. And they are also the people who are helping design the highly available, reliant, and the scalable database systems. So they are making sure that the databases architectures what we have in place right now in our industry, that is pretty much self-sufficient to handle the ever increasing demand of my data. It should be highly available, at the same time fault free, also scalable when and if required to upgrade my database source. So pretty much helpful in that direction as well, right? So we're going to talk about how this is required, database administrator as a role. Uh, Also, since we're talking about the store or extract or perform some activities where we can interact with my databases. So SQL going to be the expected platform in which I will be working on. Obviously, it could vary from different databases to databases, but that's where again the prominent requirement would come. Key skills again here, SQL and the database management architecture. So a lot of databases are there. So database management also includes my data lakes or my data pipelining. So a lot of things are there. So database management, these people are talking about, right? So that's pretty much what these people do talk about. Database administrators. And very fancy role is business analyst. Yes, again, another very prominent role is business analyst. So business analyst, these are the people who are having the strong business knowledge plus advantage of number on top of their roles. It's more like a techno-functional role. So where these people are taking care of the business from numbers perspective, right? So these are the prominent peoples who are actually the bridge between the clients and the tech team. Understand the problem statement. They're able to understand the pain point from the clients because they do have the knowledge of the data science process and the numbers, and then eventually kind of transferring the requirement to the respective technical teams after giving the righteous proposals on the business problems. And the only why they can do this because they still have the knowledge of how things work. So they must be familiar with the business process, other tech tools, and must understand the gap in a product and provide the key insights. So it's more like a techno-functional role. But again, the prominent skills here still include. We talk about. I think there's some problem here. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So we still talk about SQL here. We talk about Python. We still talk about my data EDA. We still talk about stats. We still talk about some BI tools as well. Could be handy. So these again would be my prominent skills which are required for a business analyst. On top of that, yes, they're expected to be good in business as well. So for example, a strong business knowledge is always a plus. Correct? So that's how a business analyst role looks like. So that's what business analyst does. Then we talk about another role which is nothing but machine learning engineer. Again, one of the very fancy designations available these days, machine learning engineer. So we talk about how machine learning is now getting used for my respective processes. So how machine learning is leveraging the parts here. So machine learning, they are the people who are building the ML based solution software to meet my organization demand. So they are prominently working on the ML system designing, so machine learning based software developments, and that is what these people do. So machine learning software development, and they're also talking about creating the ML models for future predictions and forecasts. They keep on doing the R&D to upgrade my existing solution. If you actually realize, so this role is some or the other way kind of replica or the alias of data scientist profile, right? So these data scientist also does. That's what data scientist does, right? So getting the data, treating the data, I mean, kind of transforming the data and the ML based models to meet the future predictions and the forecast. And then obviously they keep on doing the R&D to upgrade the existing system. So again, some or the other way, machine learning engineer becomes one of the another alias of a data scientist profile. Okay, because in the skills also we need everything what an analyst, more like advanced statistics, programming skills which include Python, SQL. I need to have the data science skills that include artificial intelligence, machine learning. So pretty much similar to what do we have from the data scientist roles, right? But again, a very prominent designation which is available these days, machine learning engineer. And at last, we talk about data architect profile. So these are the people, they are actually designing my system architecture, whole my ecosystem when I say. So to meet the expectation of my big data rise, these are the people who comes into picture. And they help designing my new database systems, analytics operations, etc. so that the entire ecosystem runs flawlessly. They are enhancing the working of my current system and designing the upgrades. Prominent skills, big data, Spark, cloud, system developments. It's more like a stage 2 or an advanced profile on top of a data engineer towards the engineering side of my ecosystem or a data science profile. So that's pretty much what an architect does. So designing, development, upgradation of my entire ecosystem to handle the data science problems. That's where the data architect roles comes into picture. Cool. So these are the prominent roles, guys, which I wanted to cover, which I wanted to show you as well, right? So again, to just summarize, prominently still three roles: data analyst, data scientist, data engineers. Data analysts are the people who are taking care of analysis of my data, right? Analysis of my data. Obviously, for that, I need to get the data first, do a lot of interesting analysis, finding out some interesting patterns, right? So SQL, Python, stats, EDA would become my primary skill there with the help of BI tools. Then comes data scientist. So these are nothing but data analyst plus predictive modeling, like the AI ML. And then comes at the last, the data engineer roles. Then we talk about the people who are taking care of the back end of my system, like a system designing, or more like taking care of my pipelines or infrastructure. That's what the data engineer does. And then we talked about a few other prominent designations as well. But on a nutshell, guys, always remember there are overlaps in the designations as well. So there's still a very thin line between these designations. We have seen overlaps. So always be mindful to understand your R&R, your roles and responsibility. The moment you start applying to any job, read the job description very carefully. What is your expectation from the role? And at the same time, what is the work which is expected from you in terms of skill? Right? So always be mindful of that. That will give you a better clarity of how to expect things. Cool. So with this, guys, I'm pretty much done. And this is what I wanted to cover for today's class. Thank you so much for being patient, and thank you so much for asking the questions as well. So any last moment questions, please feel free to ask, or we are good to wrap up. So my intention here was to tell you like how exactly you can shape up your career and what all skills you should be focusing on so that you ultimately end up having the right job for you in which you are interested. Right? So that's pretty much what the intent for the class was. So I hope that pretty much what you would have got. How to prepare resume for these roles as a fresher, maybe some examples. I can take this as a feedback. So I would probably need to build up a sample one for you to show. So we can do that. Again, see, the objective is we need to have few pointers highlighting the right skills, the keywords, very important when you explain your projects. So try to explain your projects in a bullet points about your insights in and out. But again, I'll take this as a feedback. So maybe we can add up a resume build-up session in a separate video. So I'll run through the entire process. So that can also be there. Cool. Wonderful. Great. So thank you so I hope that answers your question, everybody. So please, as always, keep on asking questions. Always, it's helpful for me as well. Guys, thank you so much. I'm just done for today. So I've taken this feedback in which we can actually start building resume from scratch, and then we'll do it in the live video. Cool. Great. Thank you so much, guys. See you the other day.